Hey Blazor fans, how's everybody doing? Looks like we got a pretty good set of folks in the chat room already. Welcome back, guests from previous shows. I appreciate the repeat followers and viewers. Bite Me, it was nice to meet you out at Star Trek, man. Hopefully you got that Blazor glove sticker in a nice shiny location. Was it you that had it fist bumping the Infinity Gauntlet? Like, love that. Steve and Kramer, we were just talking a few minutes ago. We're going to talk about a little bit of something Steven's been working on during the show today. We'll possibly have him on a show in the future. Super Sniper, welcome back. I don't think I've seen you on in the chat room for a little bit. And then Goran, as always, welcome back, buddy. Yes, rocking the haircut. Thank you, Luis. So hopefully everybody is ready for build. Build is next week, starting Monday. I think the keynotes kick off early Monday morning. So I've got some things to share around build. Jeff Fritz is doing some streams from build. I'm joining him on some of those streams, and I have some streams of my own. So I'll be creating quite a bit of content while I'm there. Besides streaming, I have a podcast called Eat Sleep Code, which is starting to pick back up into full swing again after a lot of hard work getting guests scheduled and things. So I'll be recording from the build booth at the convention center there. Is it offline? Is what offline, Goran? Not sure what you mean by is it offline. It's 5 p.m. here. I know we got quite a few viewers from over in Europe and whatnot. So I know build's going to be in the afternoon for a lot of folks. It's actually really not too far. It's later in the afternoon for me because I'll actually be on site at build, and that's out in Seattle. So I got about a 3-hour time change. So I'll usually be having kind of lunch by the time I get up over there and get moving. So I've got an actual schedule of times that we'll be streaming from build. I don't know if Jeff Fritz has put these on his channel yet. I need to get those in the bottom portion of the page, but I actually have a schedule that is in stone now, so I can share that with you guys. So if you're looking at build coverage next week, 1 p.m. Let's see here, Monday, May 6th, starting at 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. And this is all Pacific Standard Time. I'll be streaming with Jeff Fritz, and Jeff has a lot of streams scheduled all through the event, so I'm sure there'll be something going on all day long. I'm just giving you some things that are specific to myself. I will have a show on Tuesday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We'll probably be building some sort of dashboard or something using Blazor and some of the Telerik UI components, which you might have seen some news about this week. And then finally on Friday, that's gonna, or is that Wednesday? Sorry, Wednesday. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday live streams with me. 2 to 3 is Dan's time slot. So what do you mean by Dan's time slot? Is that when his session is? Tuesday, May 7th at 2 to 3 o'clock, Dan's time slot. Is that Dan Roth? Bite Me? Ah, okay. So, yeah, it looks like I'll be on that morning, so I won't have to worry about conflicting with Dan's time slot. So that'll be good. So we'll be streaming live from the show floor, from the Telerik booth, and some other locations. So we'll hopefully be able to grab some guests as they walk by and things like that. Um, hopefully there's a lot of news at Build about Blazor StateHasChanged. I'm looking forward to it. We'll definitely be building some stuff. Lewis Bite Me said, yeah, at 2 to 3 o'clock is Dan. Actually, what we can do, since we're all kind of curious about schedules, let's switch over to the coding view here and cut this music, and we'll look at my email. We don't want to do that. We'll look at the schedule for Build. If it's online, we can actually take a look at that. So Monday morning, I start at 1 because I know there is going to be the keynote from 8:30 to 10 a.m. and I won't be available for those times because I'm going to be in the keynote watching and seeing what's going on. Yeah, camera is wobbly. I got to get a new camera mount. It's actually mounted to my monitor, which is mounted to the back of my desk. And every time I touch my desk, it kind of bounces a little bit. That's because it's partially zoomed as well. That makes it even worse. So when I come back from Build, I'm going to get a camera stand that sits on the floor. So my shakiness will go away. But thanks for the feedback there. So it looks like they have sessions listed, but not sure what the session, where the session list is actually found on the site. I haven't, oh, here we go. Maybe it's under sessions. It's a little too obvious. Lots of stuff coming at Build. I'm going to be walking around the expo floor and seeing what's going on. Let's give this a look here. Let's see if they got 2 sessions on Blazor specifically during Build. And there's where Bite Me was pointing out the 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock is Dan Roth's session on Blazor. So full stack web development with ASP.NET Core. And we also have serverless web apps with Blazor, Azure Functions, and Azure Storage from 4:30 to 5. Or 4:30 to 4:50. So it looks like we've got another session on Monday. So Monday and Tuesday, a couple Blazor sessions. Yeah, I'm not that wobbly in real life. You know that, Matt. I may be shifty, but I'm not wobbly. This camera arm is very sensitive. And I thought it would actually help with the wobbliness instead of mounting it directly to like my top of my laptop or something. But no, the camera arm seems to just make things worse. So I'm gonna have to find a mount that sits on the floor. They do sell them. They're like big boom arms. It's kind of like the microphone stand that I have that you can't really see because it's off camera here. The mic stand I have kind of does that. So I need to get one of those, something that's got a little more shock protection to it. And anytime you zoom a camera in a little bit, it makes things a whole lot worse. And the camera automatically zooms because it tries to do, can't get it, it tries to automatically pan and stuff like that. And to do that, it has to zoom in the image to do it. And yeah, it sucks. So we'll get that fixed. All right. So yeah, we got lots of stuff happening at Build, a couple sessions around Blazor. The Progress Telerik booth is going to be packed with Blazor stuff because we released our 1.0 release this week. So that's our big news for Blazor this week, is if you go to telerik.com, Blazor used to be over under Innovations Lab. We've moved it under our product list here. We have UI for Blazor because it's the official 1.0 release now. And this means we have support. So if you start a free trial or you have a license that you have purchased, you can get support. And that's a really big deal because that means we're out of our preview and we're ready to give you support on questions and things that you may run into. So more components, asks Genescu. Actually, we did add a new component or two. We don't have a bunch this time around because we're getting ready for build. We didn't want to release a bunch of components that weren't quite ready for prime time yet. So if you go to demos, you'll see, let's see, these are the wrong demos. I need demos from up top here. Looks like we might need to fix that footer link. So we added new stuff this time around in the date picker. So we have a brand new date picker component that looks and feels just like the rest of the Telerik UI for Blazor components, and it's got the same theme capability, so we can add the material theme to it and easily get our theming on with the date input, so we don't have to rely on HTML5 date inputs anymore. We've got a nice Telerik UI date picker. I know we've got some other date picker components on the roadmap. We have a date range picker and things like that. How's my PDF processing coming for Blazor? I don't know what the status of that is, but I do know it is on our potential items and our wish list roadmap. Let's just call it that. So we've also got we added some new features to the grid this time around. We revamped how data binding works, and we've also added some simple filtering capabilities. You can come in here and you could say, give me all of the 40-year-old people in the grid there. So I guess I would be employee 43, and we'd show up in the list right there. We can kill the filters, go back to normal. We also have this thing called manual operations. So if you want to take over how the data grid is binding data, so you can do that as well. So what it does, it has events that are tied to things like create, update, and read. And you can tie into the data source request object, which contains things like the current filter state, what page you're on, those type of things, and you can customize how the data is being sent to the grid and bound to the data grid. So there's some real fine-tuning stuff that we added. We kind of externalized some of the internal functionality that used to be in there. So really good stuff there. Things like async upload area held back because you want one component that works client and server side. We haven't tackled uploads yet. They're going to require JavaScript. I know that for certain. Just there's no APIs in Blazor for that. And we're trying to be very careful around how we implement JavaScript in our UI components. So things that require JavaScript are going to take a little bit extra time because we want to build these things from scratch. We don't want to wrap our existing UI components and try to ship that stuff like some others have done. So we need to rewrite our upload component, and it's something that we are still in our research phase on. Ed, is that really you? It is unfortunately always me. So yeah. Let's see, we've got all of our input components have validation, native validation, and all that stuff. So not a whole lot of brand new components. A little bit of new functionality has been added there, and you'll notice that we have support now. We also have this. If you go to this drop down here, instead of picking a theme, do start theming. You may have seen theme builder before, but what was missing was UI for Blazor on the list. So we actually have, let me go back there, UI for Blazor. You can click start theming, choose the base theme that you want to start with, and you only get the Blazor components that belong to Telerik UI for Blazor in this view. So if you were to pick some other framework, you'd get all the components that go to that framework. So you can actually see the native Blazor components being styled in this designer, which is really awesome. and we have a little window full of presets and things that you can toggle and see the different components change right here in the browser, and then you can download the CSS and put it in your project. So Theme Builder now has support for Telerik UI for Blazor. So there's some of the new things that just came out in this release. Let's get into some of the other community news bits. I saw this cool project come across my Twitters. I'm not familiar with who Coefficient is, but he's got a cool demo here. Let's actually click on this and run it. This is dealing with dynamic binding of components. From what I understand from the README, when you click on Create Products, there are two different types of products that inherit from the same base class. Oh, that's your Super Sniper. Okay, I didn't recognize the name in GitHub. So there's two different types of components that bind into these two different areas here, and there's some logic behind the scenes that differentiates between the two product types, and they share a common base type. So I hope I'm explaining this correctly. I just took a quick glance at it after I saw it go over Twitter, and I thought I'd share it on the show. So there's these different components that are being bound to the same list, and there's a little bit of there's two different types of classes that get bound to the same list. So it's the source code for this is all up on GitHub. I'll share these in show notes. I promise I'll get show notes this week. I know I'm behind on show notes, but I will definitely get this up on my webpage so you guys can find the links after the show is over. But there is the GitHub link there. There's a nice little article in the README here on how it's built and what it does. So good job there, Super Sniper. Chris Santi's a blogaholic, so if you've been on the show before, you've probably recognized Chris Santi's name. He was talking about Sass this week, which is something that I've covered pretty well in detail on the show before. I love Sass. It works amazingly well with Blazor, and he's got step-by-step tutorials on how to enable it in Visual Studio and how to get working with it in Blazor. So it's a really good read there. Let's see, we got a brand new follower. Mayor, thanks for following the show. Appreciate that. So Chris, blogging as usual on really great topics. Make sure you check out his website at chrissanti.com. Recovering from a little bit of a virus, so bear with me if I lose my voice a little bit. I had to cancel the show last week. I was getting ready to go to Star Trek, and I had to speak at 8:30 in the morning to a crowd of people in a movie theater. And the Thursday before I'm supposed to do that, the day before I'm supposed to leave and do that, I get a virus, my mouth and my throat completely an absolute mess for a couple days. So I powered through that. Thanks, Matt. You were a big help. So was not feeling well, still delivered the talk. The rest of the conference was, it was a lot. So let's just say I overdid it, and I slept a lot when I came back. Thanks. Appreciate that. Jason. Yeah, it's, yeah, thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate that. It really was, I'm glad you guys couldn't tell, but it was really tough after it was done. It wasn't so bad during the talk. It was afterwards. I really paid for it. Especially on Saturday when I got home, I was out, but feeling better now finally. So just still a little scratchy here and there. So you might see me take a little extra water or whatnot during the show today. Enough about me. Lewis Hendricks, I think I mentioned this on the last show, but I wanted to give it another shout out because it's something he's been working on for a couple posts now. He's got a lot of MVVM development approach kind of like a series of articles on MVVM approach to Blazor development. So there's some really good reads there if you guys want to check that out. If you're into the MVVM stuff, you're coming from Silverlight, maybe WPF, that might be the thing that attracts you to Blazor, so give that a good look. And also, I forgot to tweet this one out, but some awesome work here by Michael Washington. He is working on migrating the Blazing Pizza app. So the Blazing Pizza app is the workshop for Blazor that was created by the official ASP.NET team, and it was initially written with a client-side only approach. There was no server side rendering or anything like that, and Michael Washington's been working on creating the server side and client side and updating those to the latest version and everything. So there is a lot of work being done by him, and he's committing it to the official repo. So if you're going to revisit the workshop or give the workshop, there's going to be a lot of new content there that allows you to teach or learn the server-side approach. Michael's a big fan of the server-side rendering portion of Blazor. So he's taken it upon himself to add that to the community project, which is super awesome. So mad props to Michael there. So I'll pop that link there in the chat window. I'm going to work on a little bit of state management stuff today. I wanted to do some coverage on a project called Blazor State, and Stephen Kramer and I were actually hashing out some things in chat before the show today. He was a big help in helping me understand how his state management tool works. I think the show today, I don't have enough time to cover all of that and some of the basics. I want to have the basics covered again because I know there's newer people out there that haven't done Blazor yet, and with Microsoft bringing it out of experimental and Telerik releasing its components, I know there's new people coming in all the time. So we want to cover some of the new stuff, or some of the basics again today, and we're going to be talking about state management. And then when I come back from build, we'll get into some of the frameworks that do state management again. There is Blazor State from Stephen Kramer. There is Blazor Fluxor from Peter Morris. And those are really cool state management tools that go beyond just basic state management. But we'll work on some cool stuff today. And when I'm done, I'm going to be packing up and getting ready to hop on a plane tomorrow. So we may go a little short today. So let's actually do file new project and get started on creating a new app. So I'm going to do an ASP.NET Core web application. We'll do next. I'm going to put this in a proper directory where I can find it. And we'll call it State Manager. We'll call this one State Manager. Let's new this guy up. There is a little bit of a lag I noticed in Visual Studio 2019 during the file new project process. This is all just coming out of the last Visual Studio preview. And I say this out of love. I really love Visual Studio, and there's some really amazing people working on it. This version of Visual Studio Preview has been kind of rough. You may see it crash today. I have had a lot of issues with it, and I know other people are having issues as well. That's part of being on the bleeding edge and using the preview bits. So, it's not something that's unexpected. It is a little bit unfortunate, but we'll deal with those things as they come up. Just be aware it's a little sticky today. So I'm going to do a client-side only application. Love the new icon, by the way. 16.1. I think this is 16. We'll take a look here in a second. I want to say it's 16.1 preview 2. Let's see if that's the right version number. And as always, it has to come up on the wrong side of the screen here. All right, so help about Visual Studio. I'll tell you exactly what version I'm on. 16.1 preview 2.0 is been. If you think 1 was awful and preview's better, I don't know. This one's been giving me a lot of issues, so we shall see. So one of the issues, let's see if it does it. Yeah, my right click, when I right click, you'll notice my window comes up way over here, not where my mouse is. So for some reason, resizing the screen will fix that for me. So you may see me do that throughout the show today, just so I don't have to like right click and then come way over here to click on something. I got some Ancient Coder, welcome to the show. You may see me do that. Also, this may absolutely crash things. I will just show you just to see if anybody else is having this problem. I hate to air some dirty laundry right here at the beginning of the show, but if I select all this code here and I choose to comment out the selected lines from up in the menu, oh, that works now. Maybe it, nope, wait for it. We're gonna lose, we're gonna lose Visual Studio. Your preview 2 does not do that, Louis Hendricks says. So, oh, did it recover? Nope, it's still, yep, it's rebooting itself. So, if all else fails, Visual Studio, turn yourself back on and off again. Never comment out the Blazor codes. Never. Yeah, that's a problem. So I may need to reinstall my bits before build this weekend, so I don't have to go to build and try to stream with not being able to comment blocks of code and clicking on menus and having them show up clear across the interface like this. So anyhow, like I said, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus from the Visual Studio team. This is a preview release. Things happen. I'm just pointing out what's happening to me. So brand new project. Let's do a quick Control F5 just to make sure our file new project worked, and we'll see what we get. So this is spinning up nicely. So we'll do a little to-do type demo today, and while we do a to-do list, we'll learn a little bit about the state management as well as some other things. Just write all the code correctly. Yeah. So my pencils don't have any erasers, is what Legendary Moon is saying. And ReSharper. Oh gosh, I love ReSharper, but I don't know. I've got enough problems happening right now without throwing other software in the mix. Not that it would create more problems, it just creates more complexity for me to have to sort things out when something does go wrong. Love ReSharper though, and especially the guys over at oh shoot, what's the ReSharper guys again? I feel terrible. Chris Woodruff's gonna kill me for not remembering. What's JetBrains? Thank you, it's JetBrains. JetBrains makes some awesome stuff. We can give them a shout out on the show. They've been in the .NET space forever, and they got all kinds of JavaScript tools now and stuff. Really great people. All right, so we're gonna go to our index page. We have a hello world. Let's see, any first time Blazor people in the audience today that haven't seen any of this stuff yet, don't know what the heck I'm talking about, what all this Blazor junk is? If there's any of you guys out there, let me know, just in case I need to cover some of the basics a little harder. So we're going to take the hello world page, and we're going to get rid of this stuff, and we're going to build a simple to-do list in here real quick. And then we'll play around with the state a little bit. All right, Legendary moves a little bit newer. So we have in our project a couple of pages. So I've got a project. www.root has some of our static stuff and our index HTML that bootstraps the application. It's going to run on WebAssembly. In pages, we have .razor files. These are actually components. The only thing that makes them a page rather than them being in the page directory is they have a router directive on top of them. And you'll see that when I zoom back out to the code here. And let's actually bump this font size up as well, so you guys can see nice and well inside of the stream. It's pretty big here. I think I left it kind of big from the last time I did a presentation at StirTrack. But you can see the page directive up here. So it's a component that has a page directive. So we've got an empty page now. We've cleared all that stuff out. We're going to build a very simple to-do list in here. So let's get that up. To-do list. We need, first of all, a place to enter a to-do item. This is HTML, so we'll do an input. We need to type it as text. It's going to be a text input. So this will be our text box for to-do item. We need to also iterate over some things and list those things out. So we'll do an unordered list, and we'll write out the lists items in here. We can give it a little title here. Let's give it an H5 tag and say to do items, like that. And then we'll list our items out in here. So now we need some code, right? We need some code, and we need to bind this input box to some text. Just got an error from the commenting bug. Didn't crash though. Gave you an error file to look at. That's a little bit more of a pleasant experience than mine that just decides to take an absolute dump and restart itself. So if you can send that log off to the Visual Studio help, go to help, send feedback, report a problem. You actually have something you can report other than it just restarted. I'm sure mine's dumping a log file somewhere. I've just been too lazy to look for it because I've been running everywhere, traveling and stuff, and making excuses for myself. We need some code. We need to bind the text box. We need to set up a list of items. Let's go ahead and do that. For that, we need a function block. So functions, and then we can put some items in here. We need a field for our text, so we'll say string, and we need to say, let's see, new item text. We'll call it new item text for now, and then we will eventually need a list here to store the items in. So we need a list of, and we don't have any kind of model to store things in yet. We could say a list of string if we want to, and we can put things in there, but then we won't be able to mark them as done. So let's go ahead and create a model. I'd like to put these, I'm still following some of the MVC patterns here until something better comes along. I'm just going to create a models folder, and I'm going to put a plain old class object in here. So we'll say new item. Class, and we'll say to do item. Lewis is trying to twist my arm into MVVM already. Look at that. So MVVM is a good approach. We could use that. So to do item has a let's say title. I'm going to use prop tab. If you're new to Visual Studio, that's just a quick shortcut to give me a property. We'll say string title. I'm messing up the workflow of this thing. I should have just hit tab and it would have went to the next field, but I actually tried to navigate it manually. Let the tools do the work for you. I need to be able to say, is this thing done, right? I want to be able to tell if this item has been completed or not, if it is a real to-do item. So we'll do that. So now we can make a string, or sorry, list of to-do item. Control period still does not work in a Razor .razor file. So we're in index.razor. Control period does not work. We could refactor this out into a code behind type of thing. It's not going to be that complex. That's where I'd normally do some work if I wanted that nice workflow with control period and refactoring and all that stuff. We're just not going to be able to get into all that. But let's just do a using statement up here, and this will give us our model. So we could say state manager. I'm not getting IntelliSense here, so let me make sure this built. So I've got something failing hard here. It's all in the view. To-do does not exist in the current context. I know that. There we go. State manager. Rosalind had to catch up with me, I think. So all that was. Rosalind, the compiler engine behind all this, just needed to get that model built. I'll have to check that out, Legendary Moon, see what they've got going on these days. So we've got our to-do list. We need to call this something. We can just call it to-do items. To-do items. We'll call it to-do items. We also need to just kind of default this to a new list of to-do item. If we don't do this, we'll get a null reference exception. We still need to new it up somewhere. We'll go ahead and just new it up right here by default, so we can start using it right away. We could also do this on init, but this does the same thing effectively. So we've got our list of to-do items. We need to take the item that's being typed in and input it into our list of items. So the first thing we need to do is actually bind. So we'll bind at new to-do item text, and it didn't autocomplete for me. There we go. So we're going to bind the value of the input box to this string, and it'll hold that value for us, and anytime we make a change, that will get updated. And we also need a button. We need to submit that when we click on this button, that the input then gets fed into the list. So we need a button here, and we'll say the button on click event is tied to something that we will handle, and we will call that add item, and then we need to add items to that list. Matt Groves got to see, and I think Bite Me was also, I did a similar demo for Star Trek, but it was Thanos's to-do list, so that was fun. I put all the Avengers names in there that got snapped out of existence, so we had a little fun with the code theme there. Or the Avengers theme, Marvel theme, not the code theme. I saw the message come on Code Rush, and I picked up the word code from there. So we need to have an event. We'll do a little event here. We'll call it add item, and we don't need to have any parameters or anything. We'll just go ahead and bind this new item text, or not bind it, but assign it to this new list item. So we do need to bind this event though, and we'll say add item is the event name, and notice it gets highlighted so we know that yeah, Bite Me. The Aquaman joke is an ongoing meme of mine for Star Trek. That all started last year when people decided to boo me. So Star Trek is an awesome event, and every year it is on opening weekend of a movie, and Marvel, in their infinite wisdom, keeps trying to change the release date of the movie after they've announced it. So they schedule Star Trek. It's supposed to be on opening weekend, and they push the movie release up a week. So people have seen the movie for a week before it goes out. So there were spoilers going around last year during Infinity War. So I opened my talk with, there's been some spoilers. I just wanted to let everybody know that Aquaman dies at the end of Infinity War. And people booed me for that. I think either some thought it was a real spoiler. Some thought it was kind of a middle finger to Marvel to mention a DC character. And people are really hardcore about their comic book people or characters. So they booed. So I had to make fun of that this year. And I had several Aquaman jokes throughout my presentation, which that'll be online soon, hopefully. And I'll share that with the... Some people have no sense of humor. Some people have an absolute sense of humor about everything, like myself, which other people don't like sometimes. So there's that too. I think most anything is funny, so I'm easily entertained. Let's just say that. All right, so I'll post that in on my blog or something when it does get released, and you guys can see the presentation. I thought it was a lot of fun. So we need to add some items to this list. So we can just go to do items with an S and say add, and then we're already binding our data. So we'll go ahead and put that, sorry, we need a new upon item here. We need a new inside of here, a new to do item, and then set the title to whoops, not quotes, right there like that. And now that will add our item to the list. So let's see how far we've gotten here. We've got our input, we've got a way to trigger the item to be added, but now we need to for each through these things. Whoops, I need to get my @ symbol going. For each, tab, and then I can say for each item in the list, in to do items, for each item in to do items, I want, we'll take this list item and bump it up here, and say for each item, create a list item that has the item, and we'll write out the done value here in a second as well. Let's go ahead and see if our work has done anything to create a to-do list yet. We should be pretty close. So we have a text box, which is good. This is our heading that has to-do items. We should be able to say A is a to-do item. Oh, I forgot to write the property out. So this is item.title. So I forgot the title part. So it's just doing a to-string on that item. That's why you saw it write out the full namespace there of the class. So that's the nice thing about Razor, is it doesn't fail on stuff like that. It just gives you a to-string output of whatever that is. So notice I've got to keep going back and deleting this thing, or it just stays that. So we need to clear this field out, and we need to add a checkbox to this as well. We can't really clear these items out yet. So to add a text box, or a checkbox rather, we need another input. We can say input type equals checkbox, and then we can call bind, and bind will bind to item dot is done. Nice auto completion feature again. Is done. There we go. Then we can close this tag out, and that should give us our checkbox. We could also wrap this guy in a label. We say label. So item title is inside of a label now, and now we can do this. We could say for, and this is just HTML. So we can say for, and we could target the input box. We need to give it some kind of consistent naming though. So let's see, how can we do that? We could try to use this title here. Let's see if this falls apart as we grow, but this will probably work just fine. We can give that title, as long as we don't have two of the same item in there, this should work pretty much fine. Hey Chris, welcome here to the show. We talked about one of your Sass articles for a few seconds. Just give you a quick shout about the good read for everybody to check out for the week. Oh, I spelled label wrong. Thank you. Label? Give it a proper label. Label 4. Just give it a quick ID to kind of link them together. That should do the trick there. If we have multiple of the same title, we run into an issue. I'm not going to go through and slap an ID on everything though right now. I think this will work perfectly fine for the demo. Notice we still don't have the text box clearing out though, but we did link these items together so we can click on them and check them. That's always good. Let's see here. Another thing we could possibly do is in for each we could grab an index and tie together the IDs that way if we wanted to. We could even concatenate title and ID together. Just don't think it's necessary just for a simple demo to do all that, but we could come back and refactor it later. So we need to clear this text box out after we do our click on there and we say new item text. We'll go ahead and set this guy to empty. I'll use a string.empty to do that there. That was really cool too. IntelliSense, when it came up, I don't know if you guys saw that. Notice the star next to the empty here. That star is actually a new feature in Visual Studio 2019. It's actually using machine learning to figure out what method or property I'm going to type next. So that's called, is it IntelliCode? That's Skynet completes your code for you, yes. So I should be able to type person.name and it will automatically look for Sarah Connor. So let's see, Control F5. We'll do this one more time. I think this is about going to complete our simple part of the to-do list. And I should be able to add item and it clears the box. So that's good, that works there. We need to clear the items. So we're going to need another button. I'm just going to duplicate the button I have. And I'm going to say clear in here. And what we want to do is all of the items that are checked, we want to remove those from the list. So there's a really easy way to do this. I'm going to create a method, void clear items. So I've got to call clear items. And when I call clear items, I want to take all the items that are checked and wipe those out. So I could do this in many different ways. One of those ways is to just refresh this list with a new list. So I can say to-do items is equal to to-do items where the item is not equal to item dot is done. So if it is not done, we want to keep it. So we'll do that. Notice it's all red underscores here. That's because it's returning an IEnumerable, and we need to call toList to get our list back and just reassign to-do items to a new list that only contains the items that are not done. So that should do the trick there. And we should be able to Control F5 again, and we can go back and work through our list. Now this part may be a little bit repetitive if you've seen Blazor demos before. Sorry about that if it's a little on the dull side, but we're going to get into state management here in just a few minutes. So now we can add our items. Let's take B and C and hit clear, and that did not work. So what did I do wrong? in this process, I just added, oh, I forgot to, I know exactly what I did. I'm still doing add item on my click handler here. So I need to call clear item, clear items from that instead. So little goof there. Can't wait till like a unit testing and stuff is available for this. Waiting for Lewis to go, unit testing is available in MVVM. Right, Lewis? Let's see. I'll have to check out the articles. I gave a good skim, but I really haven't checked them out in detail, and I need to do that. So A, B, C, D. I'm going to take off B and C. I should be able to hit clear, and boom, there we go. We're left with A and E. Corey is already doing unit testing Blazor on his stream. Corey, what's Corey's stream? Be interesting to see what approach he's taken to unit testing, because I don't think you can unit test components. You can unit test some of the code separately. Okay, from Twilio. Yeah, you can unit test the code, but you can't unit test the components. So there's no way to kind of mount a component without, you can't, yeah, it's just testing the code. Yeah, you can just test the code fine. Some of the components I've written for Telerik have tests that work with some of the features that are there, but you can't like new up a component and check all the bells and whistles just that way. So really simple stuff. This is what I love about Blazor is I have the power of C#, so I can do something really simple and easy like this. And it's really just low code way of creating this. So now I've got my to-do list. I've got functionality to clear it. But if I navigate away from, yeah, you could use Selenium. You could also use Telerik Test Studio. Still, that's more automated testing than in like integration testing than it is unit testing. I wish there was a way to just isolate my component, work on it, get information back from it, whether it's good or bad. You know, if I set my tab and my counter and it has a click, does it increment properly without setting up the entire application and running it would be kind of cool. But I don't know when we'll see that. But you notice when I click away, my to-do list items are gone. We can make this to-do list better. We might do that if we don't run out of time here. I've got a kind of short show today. We can always expand on this later. There's going to be several shows this week and next week, so we can always make this to-do list a lot nicer. So anyhow, when I come away from the page and come back, my items are gone completely. That's not good. So how do I persist this state? I want to save the state somewhere where it's not going to go away. And this is handy for maybe I want to display the count somewhere on my site. I want to not have the items disappear from one page to the next, things like that. So how do I get this to-do list state somewhere else? There's a couple ways to do it. And in fact, Chris got an article on lots of this stuff. I'm working on one as well. It talks about the several different types of state managers. There's about 3 or 4 different ways you can do this. There is internal state, which is what we have right now. So the component has all of its state internally. And that's handy for some scenarios, but not for others. Another way is to use a cascading value. So let's look at a cascading value next. So cascading values are super handy for getting 2 components to talk to each other. For example, and this is a pretty common example with Blazor, is the tab strip. I've built the tab strip several times on the show, and Steve Sanderson has a sample out there as well. And it uses a cascading value and parameter for that. So how that works is you have an element that is wrapped around the outside of your component, and that element has the state and can communicate within the children of that component. So you kind of have this hierarchy where the values persisted down the hierarchy to anything that's inside of it. So we could use that. So let's take a look at that real quick. First thing we need to do is create some kind of state container object. So right now our list is here. We need some kind of state object. So let's do that. Let's add a new item, and we'll say class. We'll say todo state provider. This thing is just going to give us state for our to-do list. And inside of this to-do list state provider, we need this list of to-do items. So we need to set up a property of list of to-do items, to-do item. Like that. We can say to-do items. So we can set up state like this. We would also need to new up that default set of to-do items, because remember we can't just go off of a to-do list items without newing it up to something. We won't be able to add items to it. We'll also need to have a way of adding items. We could put that functionality in our provider as well. So what essentially we should have is a way to add and clear the items from the list with the provider as well. So we could have all of this functionality in our to-do list provider. We could do that. So let's start simple. Let's start with our property here, our to-do list items property. We need some type of backing list here. I'm going to start with a constructor. And when the constructor spins up, we will just say our to-do items is equal to a new list of to-do item. So now we know when we have a new state provider, we're going to have an empty list of items that we can add to. And then we should be able to add items to that. It's not, there's no safety around what can be added to this. We can add to it from external sources and things like that. Can I just inline that with the property? I actually could. I could do equals new to-do list item. So we could do it that way as well, and that should work just fine. And we can comment that out. If there was any other setup type of stuff we wanted to do on construction, we would need it in there. We may end up going back to this though. So as this grows into something bigger, we might want to have a constructor there. But yes, you could actually do the default value for that property and just set that to an empty list of to-do item. So we could do that, and now we need to replace this with our state provider. So what we need to do is create a container around wherever this component is being used. So this is our index component, and where this index component actually gets rendered matters when you use cascading parameters. So we essentially have to wrap where this thing will exist in order to get that state value into it and be able to use it anywhere else. So there's several places we could put it that go up the hierarchy. The first place we're going to be able to add it is simply around the body where it gets rendered. So if we were to do a cascading value right here, wherever we place this cascading value is what has access to that property. And it's red underscores and angry at me right now because I haven't given it a value yet. We need to give it a value, and to do that we need to new up something. So we have to go into functions, and we have to say, let's call this a to-do state provider. We need the using statement here as well. So I put it under models. We could have another folder for this, but models works just fine. So we want to do using. Why is this giving me trouble? I'm misspelling something, I think. Okay, so models, that'll clear up my using statement. For to-do state provider, we'll just call it state. Just keep things nice and easy. We'll say state, and we'll give it a default value of a new to-do state provider like that. So now we have this value of state that we can assign here. State may not be perfect for naming. If we had multiple of these, we wouldn't know what the heck state is. We're only working with the to-do list today. You know, naming things is hard, guys. Naming things is hard, right? I love that meme. I didn't get to use that last show, and I was really disappointed in myself for forgetting I had it. But that's one of the biggest things we have to deal with, right? Naming things. So we can assign our cascading value as state, and then anything in the body gets access to that state. If we wanted to display any of that information, say the count, outside of the body, so this is limiting us to only components that are marked as pages. So what we could do is extend this out. We can move this up the chain a bit, and then anything inside of this div, for example, can get the state. So we can say inside of here, we can set, actually, let me put it inside the body here. We can put an h1 tag that has the state dot to do items dot count. So we could display the count like that. So that would give us a count of the to-do items outside of the index page. Now, we need to consume that that cascading value here instead of using our internal state. So to do that, we need a special type of property. So I'm going to do, parameter, not property. I'm going to do paratab tab, and that's going to give us a regular parameter. I'm going to call this a cascading parameter instead. And the type needs to be the same as the to-do state provider. So this is going to be a to-do state provider, and that is going to be my state of the to-do list. So this is going to change my code a little bit because I'm going to remove this from it. And you'll notice to-do items now, I can't just simply add a to-do list item. I have to go to my state and say state to-do items, add, and then I can add the items that way. And then also to clear them. And again, there's no safety in this state object. Anything that wants to write to it outside has the capability of just modifying. We can fix that, but that's I want to kind of take it through some steps first. So this actually should work now. I should be able to control F5. And I just simply updated where that state belongs throughout the component. And now it should actually persist, unless I did something wrong. And notice we have our counter up here as well. It's not something we had before. Add item. Notice the counter isn't moving. There's a good reason for that. If I go to my counter page, now this updated to 4, okay? If I come back, it's still 4, and I still have my items. So I've created a way to maintain that state by using a cascading parameter. So my state is carried on. It still doesn't, it has a little glitch to it. If I were to clear these 2 items out, notice the counter is stuck at 4. If I move from one page to the next, my count goes to 2 where it belongs. That's because my state component here, if I look at my main layout, if I change the state of the state provider, so that counter goes up, I'm calling state to do items count here, but there's nothing telling the UI to update. So there's no event on the main layout that is triggering the main layout to re-render. The only thing that's getting re-rendered in Blazor is the index component that is within the body. So this count does not increment when it should. So there's one little hurdle that we're going to have to fix. So we're going to have to notify the page or the container rather that something has happened. So we could do that in our state provider. We can set up an event. We could also say in the properties, if this property is set to do it. The way that I found that works best is to actually take some of this functionality out and put it in the state provider. So we're going to move add item and clear items to the state provider and let that do the work. It's also going to give us a little bit of safety around who can change what. Maybe you want other items to interact with the state provider. You can still do that, but you're going to have to be a little more specific about it. You'll notice as we go through some of these exercises, we have control over how loose or how tight we want to make the, we'll call it security, around who has access to what values and things like that, depending on what method of using state that we want to use. If we're using a cascading value, if we're using some other state management system, those all have their increasing complexities, and their state management or security management features can expand as well. So let's go back to our state provider and let's move some of our functionality out. So we want to add values directly to the state provider instead of just this arbitrary list that anything can assign an item to. So let's take, I just copied and pasted the items in here and we're going to modify them slightly. So I'm going to make this public, and I'm going to have an add item method. So I can just add an item to my to-do items. And I'm also going to take the to-do items, I'm going to make this a little more private. So we can have a little more control over who adds what to this. So let's see, add item. And we need to call, let's move this up to a private field first. So let's add that constructor back. So it's going to give us a little bit more tighter control over what we're able to do in here. So let's add a private to-do items. So it's going to be a private one. It's automatically doing some things for me. I don't want it to, actually, let me do it this way. This works better with the way the tools operate. I'm going to have a, let's see, I want to do a list of to-do item. Whoops, I don't want state provider, to-do item. I want this to be a private read-only list of to-do item. And I'm going to call it to-do items lowercase. Will I write a step-by-step guide later? Yes, I'm working on an article right now that covers the idea of state management in general, and this is going to be the basis for some of the samples in that article. So great question. So let's see, we've got a backing field for to-do items, and then we want to say, let's move this new to-do items here. So we'll new that up, and then instead of giving full access to this list of to-do items, let's just say this is going to be a public enumerable of to-do item. This should keep it pretty simple, and this is going to have a get, or sorry, we don't even need the get. We'll call this to-do items capital, and we'll return to-do items. So that makes our thing a little more private. Let's see, we just got a follow here. Let me, I don't have my dashboard open. I can't see who just followed. Oh, there we go. Next Hazard, thank you for following. Appreciate that. Welcome to the show. So we're gonna new up our to-do lists. We're going to create this enumerable of to-dos by returning our private. This is going to have a resulting .wasm. So that's an interesting question. I will, once I get to a point where I can kill these red squigglies off and recompile the application, I will answer that question for you. It's easier to show with a running application than it is while I'm coding. So I will get to that in just a second. That's a great question. So I want people to be able to add items through this type of a channel. In this to-do item, I'm going to actually move the code in this way. I'm going to say this is going to accept a to-do item as item. And instead of just adding arbitrary text here, we want to say that the private member to-do items, we're going to add the item like that. We're no longer going to have to worry about clearing out the text box. We'll have to do that on the component side of things. We don't really care about that in our state. We don't care about the state of the form. We just want to have share the to-do item list. But we do want to be able to give a way to clear some items. So to do this, we need to pass in a list of items. Actually, this can be an enumerable of items. To-do item. So this will be my items. Oh, actually, no, we don't need that. My mistake. We don't want to pass in items. We just want to. We have the state of the items we want to clear ready. We just need to go to our local storage for these and our private member here, and we can set it up this way. Ooh, we have a private read-only scenario here, so clearing these is going to be a little more difficult if this is a private read-only list of items. So we're going to have to make that a regular private field for now. So there we go. We have taken our state provider, we've extended a little bit so we can add and clear items from it. This is not public, this needs to be public. So we can access that from the outside. So this is going to change our index page just a little bit. Now we're taking in a to-do list state provider, it's called state, and instead of adding the items directly with that, adding items directly to the list, we're just going to use the add item method, which internally calls it, and then we'll new a to-do item in here and say the title is equal to new item text, and that will pass our new item into the method that knows how to properly add the to-do item to the list. So now we can come into our clear items, and it knows how to clear items. We just need to call state.clear items, and it knows how to do that by itself. So we don't have that logic there anymore. Let's see, it seems to not, there it goes. Okay, so it looks like it's compiling and happy again. We still haven't solved our problem of telling the UI that we want to update at this level of the application. So the component, the parent component here, doesn't know to update. We need to give it some method of updating. So what we can do inside of our state provider is we can give it an action to call on update. So we can say public or prop and we'll say this is going to be an action on update. So we can say it will do something on update. And when we add an item or we clear items, we will take the on update action. And if there is something to invoke, let's see here, dot invoke, we'll invoke that method. If there's not something there, we need to check it. Let's see if what am I doing wrong here? Is it dot, question dot, invoke? There we go. Always forget which direction those go. So if there's not an update method assigned, we don't want to accidentally call something that doesn't exist and get a runtime error. So we'll do the on update on both the add item and clear items. Now in our index, or sorry, our layout, where we have a new state provider, we can also say that on init, when this component initializes, we can say state on update. We'll set that equal to, we'll use the plus equals here, state has changed. Actually, I don't need that method there. We're not calling the method, we are assigning a delegate. That looks like a delegate without declaring it a delegate. Yes, same idea. We could make that a delegate. We can just pass an action. Same idea. Let's see here. We could also use the event callback from Blazor. Just trying to keep it really simple right now. We can update this and add some more best practices and things as we go along. So now we should be able to call StateHasChanged and bubble up that StateHasChanged event from our state cascading parameter there. So application is spinning up. If we add an item, notice our value updates now. So now we're cooking with StateHasChanged. And we should be able to clear some of these items out, and there we go. And if we move to another page, then our count is still 2, and we come back, it's still 2, and our items are still there. Where does StateHasChanged come from? All right, I'm going to answer that question next. Right after I answer, let's see, who was it? Chris Kettler's question about, is this resulting in WASM? If I do an inspect, and let's go to console, no, sources, sorry. Sources, network, my bad. The network tab. So Chris, I've got my network tab open. Let's do a empty cache and hard reload, and let's see what comes across the network tab. So if I look at my network tab, you will see lots of files. And I'm going to sort these by type. So you can see that we have a mono.wasm file that came across. So what is mono.wasm? Mono.wasm is the mono runtime for WebAssembly. So you'll also see DLL files in here. So what we are not doing is compiling our application to WebAssembly. What we are doing is Microsoft has compiled the .NET framework to run on WebAssembly. So we can load .NET code, standard .NET DLLs, into mono.wasm. So mono.wasm is the .NET runtime compiled to WebAssembly. Our application code, you can see State Manager is the name of our app. That is all of our application code. This is a standard .NET DLL. I can actually take the code from this and run it in different scenarios. So it is not compiled to WebAssembly. It is running through a mono runtime, the mono runtime for WebAssembly, which is the .NET runtime running in the browser. So that's how that works. Question from Link Slumps. Where does StateHasChanged come from now that I've wired this all up? So you can see this cascading value. It's a component that has a value of state. I'm newing one up here. And then I've created an action in my state called onUpdate. And I'm assigning StateHasChanged as a delegate to onUpdate. So when I call add item or I call clear items, onUpdate is getting invoked after those methods are called. So onUpdate invokes on this action. This action is assigned here to StateHasChanged. And I could have another method that does other things and still calls StateHasChanged. For example, this is just an action, so I could say this is equal. Let's see, how can we do this? I could actually do it in line like this, I believe. And let's see if I can get this to work right. I could put it in a method as well. Trying to see if I can get a little fancy here and say, all right, I could run a line of code here that says console law or write line. So I'll write out to the console that onUpdate has occurred, and then there, call StateHasChanged after it. So I could also do this as an action. I can make this a named function. I can do it in line here as an anonymous function. It could have one or many things happening under the scenes or under the covers. Control F5, and this time the StateHasChanged will get triggered. Let's see here. Pastewed, thanks for the follow, appreciate, or the subscription, thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoyed the show enough to subscribe. So now if I open up my console and I add an item, let's scoot this guy over, and I click, and my console, that write line, where did it go? Why am I not getting my console write line? Okay. Not sure why console.writeLine isn't running. I may have the wrong call here. Maybe it's console.write in Blazor. I thought it was writeLine. Oh, it's stewed peas. Okay, I got it now. It's pea stewed. Thanks for the follow. Appreciate that. Let's see if this works. I thought it was console.writeLine in Blazor to get a console log to happen. Maybe I'm wrong. To Too many things going here. You know what I'll do? I'll do inspect, and then let's just stick this guy at the bottom, so I don't have two windows floating around all the time. Console, add item, and it's going to make a liar out of me. I don't know why. My console writes are not working. Could have swore it was console write line. The state has changed is triggering, so I'm not sure why console write line is not, but the idea was to show you that multiple things can be assigned to on update and they will trigger. It's just not having it today. Don't know why console.writeLine isn't happy, but I should be hitting it. Try one more compile for sanity's sake. Give this a look. Add item, add item, add item. Oh, there it goes. So it must have been I must have not compiled that one time. So if I clear these out, you'll see this just keeps counting up. So on update is getting triggered here. That's tying this on update thing in my state is tying it all together. So hopefully that answered your question. All right. So cool. Hopefully link slumps that does the trick. Now, cascading value, if I wanted to add something, say, to my nav menu, right? So my nav menu is this handy little piece on the side. What if I wanted to display my count right here where it says home? So if I'm in my nav menu, nav menu, I look at my nav links, I have one called home. I want to put the count here, so it just shows up as a number like 5 or something. Or actually it wouldn't go there. It would go after the word home. Maybe I want it to have 5 right there. If there's 5 items, it'd be home 5. That is a problem now because I have to move my cascading value all the way up the chain to wrap around my nav menu now. So now I've got my cascading value just extending all of this, and it has to match the tags, and then has to go here, and I'm wrapping my entire application with it now. So that's a downside to cascading value. So question is, what would you use to loop a count without an action or state has changed, like a clock? You would still use a timer if you wanted to do something like a clock. You'd use timer, and then when the timer hits its event, the event would trigger state has changed. I don't have an example of that handy, but I know they're out there. It's something that we could possibly do on another show, as I'm running low on time and I haven't got to the next part of the segment yet. But yeah, if I did here, I can show you at least this way really quick. System.threading timer. If you go to system. I think it's threading timer you use. System.threading timer, methods, timer callback. So inside of timer callback, you would have to either trigger state has changed or bubble it up. So when the callback event happens, you could keep having an event trigger the state has changed as well. All right, so this cascading value is a little unruly. You have to rely on where the markup is for the cascading value in order for it to work properly. So if, say, somebody else came in and worked on the project and they moved the cascading value to where it no longer wrapped the H1 tag, for example, or they're adding new components to the application and it didn't get nested correctly, that H1 tag now has issues. So the cascading value thing is nice for components with hierarchy, like tab strips and menu panels and things that are very tightly coupled together. Not so great for what we're doing here. So let's look at another method of doing this. I'm going to take out the cascading parameters from the body of the web page here. I'm going to leave state and the state provider and stuff here for now. I'm going to show a different way of managing state that I think is going to be a little more common, at least I hope so, where we can move state around a little bit easier. So I'm going to use dependency injection instead. So let's look at dependency injection. So I already have a state provider. I was just throwing that value in a cascading value component and using it as a cascading parameter. But instead, I could also use a service. I could say services dot. I'm going to use add scoped. I use add scoped just kind of as a default. I could use add singleton as well. It depends on where you're running the application. If you're going to run on the server, then add singleton will give you a common, it will give you one value per application, which if you have multiple users, you don't want them sharing the state of a to-do list. That would not be good. So you'd use add scoped. On the client, it doesn't matter. I just kind of default to add scoped just out of good habits. And this is going to be a to-do state provider. The control period will add my using statement there. So now the application can just inject a to-do state provider whenever I need it. So now I can come back to my component. I no longer have a cascading parameter available. So that is gone. I deleted it. So this will no longer work. Instead, what I need to do is come up to the top of my component and have a directive up here and say inject. And I want to inject a to-do state provider, and I want to call it state. And I'm going to go ahead and leave this as a capital letter. Normally when you use dependency injection, you put lowercase. It's just I'm gonna have to go through my code and rename a bunch of stuff. I don't feel like it. I'll leave it capitalized. And then I can delete this because now that is being provided by my dependency injection system. So now I'm going to resolve a to-do state provider that is coming from my container. I also need to do the same thing on my main layout. I can still keep this code, but instead of newing up a provider here, I'm going to take that code out, and I'm going to say inject a to-do state provider. This one I named lowercase state. So I'm going to call that one state. That should clear up any code problems here. And notice I don't have to worry about where the cascading parameter or cascading value tags are wrapped. They're gone now. It's just using dependency injection. I have that value injected into my component, and I can use the value wherever I'd like. So for application-wide values, providing state at the dependency injection level is a little bit more flexible and easier to manage, in my opinion. So let's try this, add item. Look at that, it works just like the cascading component did, cascading value did. I can also come in here and clear, that still works. This homepage 5 is hard-coded right now. I did want to show, instead of displaying the count there, I could also display it here. And again, I have to use the same kind of boilerplate code. I need to take and assign my StateHasChanged event on the nav menu as well, if I want to use my state here. Otherwise, it won't update. So let's inject on our nav menu. Sorry if I'm darting around a little fast. I copied that inject statement from the previous page as I was tabbing through here. I also need my using statement right above that. So now my nav menu has access to that same state, and I can come into my home menu item, and I can also say state to do items dot count right here, and I'm missing a dot. There we go. So now that should compile happy. Squiggly's gone away, and I can control F5 and we'll rebuild the application, and now my menu item should update with the count of my to-do items. So you can see home is 0, A, B, C, D. There we go. And it has a nice little ticker in there. So if I go from page to page like that, that stays relevant. Where this is pretty handy is I'm going to come in here and delete this one. I don't really need that on my home page anymore now that I have it in my nav bar. So we'll take that guy away. If this was still a cascading value thing, I'd have to wrap this in a cascading value, which would be super annoying. But now on the nav menu, I still have that. Let's go ahead and take this console log out of here too. Let's tidy this code up just a little bit. Call state has changed here, and control F5. All without a line of JavaScript. Blazor has changed my life. That's what I like to hear. I know, this is really cool stuff, and we didn't have to worry about missing a comma and a semicolon and serializing JSON across something and deep copies and all that fun stuff. So what is this? Not trying to bash JavaScript, but how many articles do you need to write about what this means before people get it? It's not intuitive, I guess, if there's a million articles on it. All right, so enough beating up JavaScript. I love JavaScript, it's fine. So what's cool about the home counter in this scenario is that you can imagine like notifications or something, notification counter, maybe this is the number of emails I've got or messages to respond to, something like that. It's always visible across my application. It's like Silverlight but easier and not canceled. So it's not dead. It's always a good sign, Lewis. It's not dead. Yeah, the answer is depends. Not satisfactory. Is it easy to switch to an Electron app from server side? I think it's probably pretty easy, but I haven't tried it, so I can't say for sure. I want to say yes, but I also haven't tried it, so I can't say yes. My educated guess is it's not too complex. I've seen a couple demos of it. It looks really nice. You could also do PWAs and offline and all that stuff too. Coming up on 2 hours, I'm going to go ahead and start winding down. If you guys have any questions, I will try to answer them now. And I'll let you know what we'll do with this project moving forward. First of all, we can make this look nicer. I know to-do lists are kind of boring, but we can tidy this up to make it look a little nicer. We're also going to explore Blazor State after build week. So there is a framework, if you want to call it that, or a tool. If Stephen, you're still in there, feel free to chime in with what terminology you use. There is a NuGet library that deals with state management. It's a little more complex, and it's not meant for simple to-do lists. Is more around, so it's a library focused on making your state more robust in the fact that if there are exceptions, they can be handled properly. If there are multiple inputs coming in, it can handle those inputs without accidentally overwriting things, so it has better control of state mutation and all of those things. There's a couple libraries out there. Steven's got a good one. There's another one that's called Blazor Fluxor that's good as well, and they follow similar paths. We'll just say that. So Steven's going to come on and help me talk about the Blazor State library in about a week or so when we can get that scheduled up. But we'll continue with this to-do idea just because it's simple enough that we can take it and run with it. And then through, let's see, June and July, I may be bumping up the shows. I know I keep saying that and I haven't done it yet. I stopped traveling. For the love of God, I stopped traveling in June. So my last travel week is June 3rd through the 7th. So I've got from the 10th through July. And I plan on doing some more shows, and we are going to build Blazport, the Uber app for space, throughout the show. Next week at Build, we'll probably be looking at a build out for the Telerik UI stuff. If you go to telerik.com and click on Blazor, so all products, Blazor. During build, what I'd like to cover is our demo that we have in the Telerik UI for Blazor demos. We have built this really cool issues dashboard. We will look at how this was built, maybe rebuild some pieces of it. So you can see we've got charts in nice line graphs in here. And these are tracking GitHub issues. I don't think this is live data, but it's either a sanitized version of live data or it is a mock of some GitHub data. So it's a nice dashboard around things like closed issues, active issues. It's like an issue tracker for GitHub. Some lorem ipsum in here. I don't remember if this is if we just took this and sanitized it out or what we did, but these are GitHub issues that you can look at details in a grid. It has paging and sorting and all of those good things, and it has this dashboard view with a drop-down list to pick date, time frames, and things like that. So we will look at this during build. That will be, let's see, I gave you guys some dates earlier. I think it was Tuesday. Tuesday morning, I have a stream about Blazor. If we have time, this is what we'll probably be looking at. So this will be something fun to build as well. So we'll have lots of projects coming up that we can build and have topics for on the show. I have some podcasts coming as well. Some of those I'd like to get streamed live. Still working on logistics for that, but we'll see what happens with that as well. So watch Jeff Fritz's channel for Blazor news throughout the week and in build news. And then also keep an eye on my channel for shows Tuesday morning. I got some questions coming in here too. Are Blazor components available as part of the DevCraft subscription? Codebase Alpha. This is a question that is ringing through my emails right now, and I do not have a solid answer for you yet. I think that decision will be made by early next week. As far as I'm aware, it is part of, and I could be wrong, so please do not send hate mail to Telerik if I get this wrong. I'm trying to answer the best of my knowledge. The DevCraft Ultimate bundle. Let's see, where are we at? I want the side-by-side comparison. Where did it go? It's under pricing, maybe? Yeah, there we go. There are several bundles, so when you say DevCraft, we have to be very specific which one. Here we go. The DevCraft Ultimate, you can see Telerik UI for Blazor. It is not part of the DevCraft Complete or DevCraft UI. Now, this is the way it stands right now. I do not know if this will change. So I can't tell you that this may be different by Monday. It could be, it could not change. So I'm not sure. I do know that it is in the complete or the ultimate package right now. So subject to any changes that I am unaware of, this is the way it stands today. Hopefully that answers your question. I don't know which subscription you have and which one you were asking specifically about, but you just ordered 3 complete licenses. Okay, so DevCraft Complete, assuming Blazor would be part of it. Do me a favor and email your contact. Is you have Complete as well. So a couple, do me a favor, you guys, and email your salesperson. And feel free, actually here, you can copy me, or you can email me if you'd like. I can't do anything but escalate your feedback, but please feel free to email me and let me know your thoughts about that information I just shared with you, and I will put it in front of the right people. I can't say it will change anything, but it doesn't hurt to ask, right? So yeah, it's really good feedback to have. So just let me know at that email address, and we'll see how they respond to that. I'm not the guy that sets the prices, unfortunately, so I can forward that up the chain, as they say. Yeah, I'm not the one that makes these decisions, so I'm not going to really comment too much on it. I can do my best as a developer advocate and echo your feedback to them. So feel free to shoot me an email. I just popped it in the chat there. I will forward it immediately to the right people, and they can respond to you. Right? Things that are helpful to us too, if you were already a subscriber or you subscribed for the pure fact that you thought you were getting Blazor, those type of pieces of information help. So please let us know. Yeah, I'll be ducking punches at build. I'll be dodging chairs like it's Monday Night Raw or something. All right, so good questions around Telerik UI. Please forward me your messages, and I will escalate those. Let's see. What else do I have coming up that we can talk about real quick? Using Silverlight a lot. Do I recommend it as a replacement? So in the short term, it may be not something you want to put in production until Microsoft gives their blessing on what should be in production, what is not. But yeah, it's a very clear migration path to go from Silverlight to Blazor. Silverlight has been discontinued for quite some time, so you're gonna have to move that tech somewhere. I think Blazor is probably a good candidate. Best way to encourage adoption is to make a non-ultimate option. Again, in the email, please let us know that. Lewis recommends it. Step 1, removing services from WCF and Web API. I wish I had Silverlight examples to migrate, and I would, but I just don't. I never did any Silverlight development beyond like one Windows Phone app ages ago. So I don't have any examples to share on the show, but that would be a good topic. But it looks like quite a few people out there do have Silverlight apps they want to migrate. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. I'm gonna go ahead. You have Telerik demo. Yeah, I have the Telerik demo, but the thing is, I don't know what the heck I'm doing in Silverlight. Let's see. All right. Let's go ahead and let's see if there's anybody else streaming out there right now. So let me pull up Twitch real quick. And if there are other people out there with awesome streams we can raid, we will go ahead and raid their shows. Let's go ahead and mute their audio, though. Let's see, we got Clark IO again. I wonder what Corey is talking about.
We're not.
All right, so let's go ahead and raid Corey, because I know he's talked about Blazor before. He's from Twilio, and Corey is trying to get more people on his stream. So let's do him a favor and give him a raid. I think he'll appreciate that. We raided Clark IO last week, and that was fun. So let's see here. So before we raid, or as we count down to the raid, we're going to raid here in just a minute. You can check my website for updates. I will have show notes and things like that up there as soon as possible, and I have podcasts and things coming. So we've got 25 folks. Let's jump into Corey's Twilio channel and say hello to him. Thanks, guys. Have a good weekend. I will see you Monday from many live streams. So follow me while I'm at Build. Hopefully we get to hear some really cool announcements. Thanks, Chris. Keep up the good work, man. Everybody that's got community stuff out there, keep it going. We've got a really great community up on Gitter and Twitter, and sharing resources and GitHub projects. So I'll see you guys soon. Here we come, Corey.